I ended up telling my students that I was gay. And how it came up was one of the students was like, my mom thinks that you're gay because of your voice. And I'm like, maybe, maybe not. So they were asking me if I was, because I kind of alluded that I was. So they were asking me if I was. So I kind of let them wonder and ponder on it. And I have like the LGBT promotional, this is a safe community kind of stuff, the rainbow stuff all up in my room. And I told them, I'm like, if you look around the room, that should give you an answer to your question. So I did officially tell them. They, of course, went berserk. So instead of teaching social studies today, they just asked me a whole bunch of questions about being gay. So I think it was pretty well.
Nobody cares. 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 Nobody cares.
Nobody cares. Yeah.
That's right, nobody wants you in this town. Nobody wants you around, period. Oh, look at him, fellas. You crying, boy? You crying, boy? Maybe we'll go back down to McDonald's and get you a Whamburger and some French fries. How about a Weineken? You little sissy boy! Def Leppard sucks!
Let's finish on this. Today, the Ontario government became the latest province to cut its share of provincial gas taxes. It will drop by 11 cents a litre starting July 1st for 6 months to help Ontarians deal with the higher cost of living. And it will have an effect effectively of blunting the increase in the federal carbon tax. So do you support provinces cutting gasoline taxes, or does that undermine the role of and the intent of higher carbon pricing?
It does goes against our efforts to fight climate change, and we shouldn't lose sight of the fact that we've gone through a pandemic. There is a terrible crisis happening right now in Ukraine. We're seeing inflation, but all of these crises will go, and climate change will still be there. And climate change is killing people in Canada. 700 deaths last year in BC alone related to the heat domes.
Everything that guy just said is bullshit. Thank you.
Police announced former Keller ISD band director Jedediah Moss is now facing 14 more child indecency-related charges. That's in addition to the 3 charges from last October.
That part was uncommon for me, just to have so many victims from the same reported person.
The 36-year-old was first arrested last fall. Investigators say students accused Moss of exposing himself in a Bear Creek Intermediate School bathroom. After that, a tip line was set up.
With more victims, there's more information.
New affidavits show parents and victims called that tip line to report incidents as far back as the 2015-2016 school year and as recent as September 2021. According to those court records, several victims reported to police that Moss asked students to join him in the restroom and watched the students at a urinal while he performed a sex act on himself. The students told police this happened while they were in 7th and 8th grades in a student bathroom near the band hall at Keller Middle School. According to the documents, more than a dozen students reported the same type of incident with Moss to police.
Busted.
No. Sorry, he's a weirdo.
So hide your kids, hide your wife, and hide your husband because they raping everybody out here.
You don't have to go to hell. You're in hell. This is hell. This is hell. This is hell.
Because democracy basically means government by the people, of the people, for the people. But the people are retarded.
Then strangled them, and finally dismembered their bodies.
Right.
Then
available.
And homelessness and all that.
And now, the voice you've been waiting for.
There is a secret song at the center of the world, and its sound is like razors through flesh. I'm here to turn up the volume.
A few weeks ago, these videos started making the rounds on the internet showing Ukrainian troops torturing, killing, and maiming Russian POWs. And unsurprisingly, it was completely ignored by the corporate mainstream media in the US. Instead, they spent an entire week with that happy horse shit that happened at the Oscars as their leading story. I mean, that was the only thing they wanted to talk about all fucking week. And then, all of a sudden, it was, oh, look, Bucha. It appears as though the Russians committed war crimes and executed some people. And I'm thinking, oh, geez, that's funny. Where the fuck were you assholes a week and a half ago? And it didn't take long before people started noticing some irregularities with so-called evidence of Russians committing these war crimes. For one thing, a lot of these bodies had white armbands tied around their arms, which was something that people that were supporting Russia did to let them know that they were on their side. See, a blue armband would mean that you're Ukraine, and white would mean that you're Russia. So it doesn't make much sense why the Russians, while they're pulling out, would just start executing people that were on their side. And some of these dead bodies that they found, like in the basements, were right next to Russian rations, the Russian version of a MRE. And there was a video that a member of the Azov Battalion uploaded to Twitter. You remember the Azov Battalion? They're those totally not neo-Nazis that just coincidentally happen to be into swastikas and Sieg Heiling and shit, but they're not Nazis, no. Well, he uploaded this video where he's talking about shooting people that didn't have blue armbands, and then, you know, he deleted it because it kind of looks bad. Not to mention that the mayor of Bucha put out a video address on Facebook on March 31st saying that this will go down in history as the day of liberation for our community. And he went on to say, so today I state that this day is joyful, and this is a great victory. So riddle me this. If the Russians had left all these dead bodies in the streets, why the fuck is the mayor talking about it being such a joyful day? And then there was the video of the, oh shit, did that dead guy just move? Oh fuck. As if these poor bastards in the Ukraine didn't have a hard enough time, now they gotta deal with zombies. Dead bodies returning from the grave. Or maybe it was all just staged as a pretext for NATO to get more involved in the war. Now, am I saying that nobody got killed there? Absolutely not. I am just saying that maybe, just maybe, the Ukrainians might have a little bit of an incentive to fudge some of the details.
How dare you!
Shut up, traitor. Dissent will not be tolerated. Support Ukraine. Support Ukraine. Support Ukraine. Support Ukraine. Support Ukraine. Or else.
Yeah, you're right. That's just crazy talk. And in other news, we made history this week when Ketanji Brown Jackson was confirmed to the Supreme Court. Yay.
Meet your new Supreme Court Judge, Ketanji Jackson. In every single case involving child pornography, Judge Ketanji Jackson has been lenient and openly sympathetic with the perpetrators of child rape pornography. Christopher Michael Downs openly bragged about molesting his 13-year-old cousin. He was arrested for trading videos of child rape, including children as young as 2 years old. Judge Jackson gave him the absolute bare minimum sentence. Ryan Manning Cooper was arrested for having more than 600 images involving the rape and torture of children, including infants and toddlers, which is why the prosecutors made it clear that the case was on the more egregious or extreme spectrum. But Judge Jackson disagreed and ruled that distributing images of infants and toddlers being raped is not especially egregious. Wesley Keith Hawkins posted videos of 11-year-old boys being raped by men. Jackson only gave him 3 months, sent him to a low-security prison, arranged for special protections, and apologized to him, telling him that she feels so sorry for him and his family and for the anguish that this has caused all of them. In explaining her light sentence, Judge Jackson argued for the child pornographer's future potential. 6 years later, he was arrested again for distributing child rape porn, and Jackson re-sentenced him to only 6 months in a residential re-entry center. Neil Alexander Stewart was arrested with hundreds of images and videos of child rape while trying to procure children between the ages of 5 and 11 to rape them. Judge Jackson admitted that the felon was likely to reoffend, but still gave a light sentence, arguing that the current recommendations for child sex offenders is outdated and substantially flawed. 3 years later, Stewart reoffended. This is how Judge Jackson got her start. In 2009, President Obama nominated her to vice chair the U.S. Sentencing Commission, where she helped weaken federal sentencing policy for child pornographers by arguing that child pornographers are not pedophiles.
Well, isn't that special?
There was also the story that broke about a former co-host on Steve Bannon's podcast who has fled to Switzerland because he has 450 gigabytes of previously deleted material from Hunter Biden's laptop that he was able to recover, he says. We're talking about 80,000 pictures and videos, 120,000 emails, and the stuff that he had distributed to congressmen, and some of it has been published. That stuff was bad enough. Just imagine what had been deleted. And he's claiming that he fled to Switzerland because he's trying to publish all this stuff in the coming weeks in a searchable online database. It'd be a shame if something were to happen to him. But seriously, this guy has some balls. And so did one of the many members of Congress that he gave copies of the laptop to, Matt Gaetz, who a couple weeks ago, you might remember, actually got the contents of the laptop entered into the congressional record. I really hope we get to see the stuff that dipshit thought he had deleted. But speaking of Matt Gaetz, he also had a pretty saucy exchange with the Secretary of Defense, Austin.
So why would we invite people we don't agree with to evangelize views and values that we don't share at the National Defense University when we should be learning strategy about how to combat our enemies and make assessments that are accurate?
And we do learn a lot about strategy and about the military and about joint force development. And so that is our focus in these institutions. I don't know what the context of this particular or content of this particular speech was.
Mr. Secretary, I've shared with you the context. The context wasn't better understand socialism so we can defeat it. The context wasn't learn about it so that we can offer countermeasures. The concept was that it's time for socialism. And the reason I know that's the context is because the lecture was pulled from a book written by Thomas Piketty entitled Time for Socialism. And I just can't help but notice.
And so your question was whether or not
I control the time.
Your question
You guys have been blowing a lot of calls
socialism.
lately on matters of strategy, Mr. Secretary. You guys told us that Russia couldn't lose. You told us that the Taliban couldn't immediately win. And so I guess I'm wondering, what in the $773 billion that you're requesting today is going to help you make assessments that are accurate in the face of so many blown calls?
You've seen what's in our budget. You've seen how the budget matches the strategy. And so I'll let that speak for itself.
Well, I mean, I've also seen that we're behind, Mr. Secretary. We're behind in hypersonics. We failed to deter Russia. Last year,
so what do you mean we're behind in hypersonics? How do you?
Okay, who's ahead in hypersonics?
How do you make that assessment?
I don't know. I make that assessment because China is fielding hypersonic weapon systems and we are still developing them. I make that assessment because Russia actually used one. By the way, your own people brief us that we are behind and that China is winning. Are you aware of the briefings we get on hypersonics?
What a douche this guy is. How do you figure we're behind on hypersonics? Well, because we just had 3 failed tests in the past few months, and China and Russia are fielding these same kinds of missiles. Russia just used it on the fucking battlefield in Ukraine. You don't even need briefings to know about this. This is publicly known shit. And this asshole up there talking about, well, how do you figure we're behind on hypersonics? And yeah, the US is now claiming that we did a successful test of a hypersonic in mid-March, but that we did it secretly because we didn't want to further inflame tensions. And you know what? Maybe that is true, but the fact of the matter is, in the past 4 or 5 months, we've had 3 fail, and so even if we had 1 make it, that's 1 out of 4. 25% success rate doesn't exactly instill me with a lot of confidence. But sure, yeah, we're not behind at all. Please continue.
I am certainly aware of briefings that we provide to Congress.
But it's not just the hypersonic. It's all over the world. It's in Taiwan, where China's last year flew more sorties than ever before. It's North Korea, on pace to shatter prior records, the number of missiles that they are testing. And so while everyone else in the world seems to be developing capabilities and being more strategic, we got time to embrace critical race theory at West Point, to embrace socialism at the National Defense University, to do mandatory pronoun training. Do you assess?
You know, it's again, this is the most capable, the most combat-critical force in the world. It has been, and it will be so going forward.
Not if we continue down this path.
To do that.
Not if we embrace socialism.
The fact that you're embarrassed by your country. By
no. I'm embarrassed by your leadership.
I'm sorry for
I am
that.
not embarrassed.
You hear that? That's the kind of elitist, arrogant shit you hear from the top military brass all too often. Oh, you criticize me? Well, I'm really sorry that, you're embarrassed by your country. Sorry, douchebag, but your fucking leadership is a joke. You completely fucked up the withdrawal from Afghanistan. Anybody with an IQ above room temperature would have known that you don't shut down Bagram and then do the last evacuations from the metropolitan airport in the capital of the fucking country, unless you want to get 13 Marines killed. Oh, but I'm criticizing you, so I must not love my country, right? Go fuck yourself. And I gotta say this about Matt Gaetz. I mean, I don't fully trust anybody, but as far as he's concerned, I've been liking what I'm seeing. And somebody else that I don't fully trust, but has been making me smile a lot lately, is Elon Musk. He just this past week bought 9.2% stake in Twitter, and now as the largest shareholder, got a seat on the board. And he almost immediately put out a tweet with a Twitter poll asking, do you want an edit button? And 75% of people said yes. I mean, this is something that people have been asking for from the company for years now. And then he buys his stake, does the poll, and the very next day, Twitter announces, hey, guess what? We're adding an edit button. Now, it remains to be seen how much of an effect he's going to have in the totality of it, and how much of an impact he'll be able to have on policy, for instance, whether or not Trump is going to be allowed back on. That's been the big thing everybody's talking about. And who knows, maybe it'll ultimately mean very little. But I can't wait to see how this plays out. I mean, the freak out was immediate from people. A lot of employees at Twitter, oh my god, I don't know if I can continue to work for this company. A lot of these arrogant, loudmouth, condescending D-bags are just shuddering at the thought that they might once again have to deal with people who use logic and reason and don't really give a shit about their feelings. They've created this little online safe space where they can just whine and throw tantrums like little fucking babies.
Were you born yesterday? Did you slither out of your mother's cooch yesterday? Are you a little born yesterday, diaper face?
Yesterday, I was safe in my mommy's tummy, and then I got born, and the world is so cold and hard. Wah!
It's gonna be funny to watch this all play out. And don't we all kind of need that? Especially in the bleakest of times, it's important to find things to laugh about. Sláinte.
All I have in this world is my thoughts and my words, and I don't break them for no one. You understand? So say good night. So say good night to the bad guy. So say good night. So say good night to the bad guy. So say good night. So say good night to the bad guy. So say good night. So say good night to the bad guy. Come on. Come on. I told you! Don't fuck with me! I told you! Don't fuck with me! You stupid fuck! Look at you now! Look at you now!